Hello and welcome to Jedites Pagan Vlog. I'm Dr. Marcus Lawson, better known as Jedite83 or Jedite, and as I promised last week, we are going to be doing introduction to Wicca and paganism and witchcraft lessons, and this is our first episode in that strain after last week's introduction to the channel. And today I want to answer a couple of questions that I think are need to be gotten out of the way pretty early. We're going to discuss today what is Wicca, what is Corellian Wicca, which is what my background is and what a lot of these lessons will be based on. What is Starry Sky Wicca, which is my particular flavor of Corellian Wicca that I am developing. We'll get into that in a minute. And most importantly, and probably the reason a lot of people are interested in Wicca and in these videos anyway, what is witchcraft and what is magic? Start off with what is Wicca? Wicca is a modern pagan religion. Scholars of religion do categorize it as both a new religious movement and part of the occultist stream in Western esotericism. What all that means is pretty much, one, we are a new religion. We are a modern pagan religion. Some people will tell you Wicca traces all its ancestry back all the way to the beginning of time and space itself. No, we do not. We can trace Wicca can trace its ancestry back to the 1950s, and there's nothing wrong with that. Although our teachings are definitely based on older materials. So if anyone tries to tell you that Wicca is some ancient religion, it draws upon ancient religions, but it itself is not an ancient religion. Wicca was developed in England in the first half of the 20th century, and it was introduced by Mr. Gerald Gardner, who was a retired British civil servant in 1954. As I said, we are a modern religion. However, our theological structure, our teachings, our ritual practices come from a diverse set of sources, some of which are ancient, and some of them being a bit more modern. We are inspired by things such as the ancient Greek and ancient Roman religions, just as we are also influenced heavily by organizations from the 19th and 20th century, such as the Golden Dawn. Gerald Gardner's Book of Shadows was initially heavily influenced by Aleister Crowley, who was involved with the Golden Dawn, and then later his own religion, Thelema. Although, even though his influence is still there, a lot of Gardner's Book of Shadows was rewritten by his first priestess to help to remove or hide a lot of the influence by Crowley. There is a YouTuber who goes by the screen named Dot Darling, who does have an excellent video on it. And if I remember, I will put a link to that video in the description, because I think it is interesting on how that religion and those teachings did help influence us. Wicca is divided into a number of schools of thought. We call these traditions. Some traditions do have the ability to trace their lineage back to Gardner himself, and these are generally referenced or referred to as British traditional Wicca. When I mean they can trace their lineage back, you can take a member and say, oh, well, this member was initiated by this person, who was initiated by this person, by this person, by this person, all the way back until you say, and they were initiated by Gerald Gardner. These are British traditional Wicca. There are some British traditional traditions that will bottleneck around other people too. That's normal. A lot of those people were also trained by Gardner or one of his early students, and they're the ones who brought it to the United States and stuff like that. Um, you'll forgive me for not going into a lot of depth on the history of Wicca. I am not a historian. That is not a field of theology that I study. So forgive me. Many of the other traditions in Wicca that aren't British traditional are generally referred to as eclectic. Either because they don't have a lineage to Gerald Gardner, some of them have their own lineages back to whoever started it, some of them don't care about lineage at all, and many of them do draw upon sources other than that traditional lineage for their own teachings and rituals. They are Wicca, but they are their own flavor of Wicca, if you will. Speaking of eclectic, what is the Corellian tradition of Wicca? The Corellian nativist tradition can trace its roots back to Orpheus Caroline High Corel and the year 1879. You'll notice that is before Gardner made Wicca public, because originally Corellian tradition was not Wicca. It was its own system. There's nothing wrong with that. Orpheus Caroline High Corel drew upon her own heritage, her Native American heritage, and the ideas of European witchcraft, spiritualism, and Hermetic thought, which was popular at the time. And then if we jump forward to 1979, the Corellian Council of Elders claimed Crystal High Corel as the head of the tradition and claimed Donald Lewis High Corel as co-head of the tradition. This led to the tradition being opened to the public, and they began a series of outreach programs. One of those outreach programs was a series of correspondence lessons. They were originally presented in 1989, with revisions being completed by 1990. Although they were eventually delayed until 1997 for additional revisions, updates, and due to some personal matters in Don Lewis's personal life. In 1999, the first cleric who was to be trained under those lessons was initiated to the first degree of the Corellian tradition. It was also here in the late 90s, I believe, where the Corellian nativist tradition began to identify itself as Wicca, or as Wiccan, I should say. Those lessons would, in the early 2000s, I want to say 2005, I'm not positive on that one, they were used as the basis to start Witch School, which is the official seminary of the Corellian tradition. Now, I said in my last video that if you follow the lessons that I'm presenting here in my videos, you will be able to, you will know the equivalent to a first degree, but you won't be qualified to be the first degree in the tradition, because you actually do have to take the classes through the seminary. That's just that's just the requirements for initiation, and I would strongly check it out. Witchschool.com is free. Most of the important lessons, at least, are going to be free. There's a lot of extra stuff that does come with a inexpensive fee. Only a few dollars, I think, a month, if I recall, in order to take the classes, and I do think it is definitely worth it. I was lucky when I signed up years ago. They still were offering, for a large lump sum, a lifetime membership. And if they ever offer them again, I would strongly say take them. It is definitely worth the investment. So what makes the Corellian tradition different than other traditions of Wicca? That's actually a good question. One that, while I was writing this video, I struggled to answer myself, honestly. So I actually did reach out to our co-head of the tradition. He's also the chancellor and a few other things for there, Mr. Donald Lewis High Corel, and he actually did tell me what makes us as a tradition unique is our diversity. Whereas some traditions say, this is how we do it, don't make any differences, don't make any changes. No. The Corellian tradition not only allows that diversity, we embrace it. We encourage people to practice things how it works for them. Excuse me. And we encourage people to experiment. And that's something that I personally do like about this tradition. Is that we allow for personal and cultural variations. We also have very strong racial and ethnic diversity. And no, this diversity, these variations, this is not us adapting to the times. This is who we as Corellians are and who we have always been. And that's something I do like. That's something that did draw me to this tradition in the first place. We are also, as far as traditions go, very highly organized. Wiccan traditions, some of them have a lot of organization, some of them are very unorganized. And when I say organized, I mean as far as an actual organizational structure. For us, we have, let me say it this way. Some traditions, you'll have just your local organizations, usually called covens. In Corellian Wicca, we use the term temple, generally, for this. But it means the same thing. It's your local church, to use another term. And that is the whole of it is you have your local unit headed by a high priest and or high priestess, and that's it. They don't answer to anyone else. And some people like that. Some people do. It works well for them. The Corellian tradition, we do have a strong central governing body. And temples are independently started, but to be an official temple, you are chartered by that governing body, a mother church, if you will. Because of this, since we have a strong central government to help bring us all together, all of our temples, it's easier, I would say, to move from one temple to another, to be members in multiple temples, since everyone's sort of on the same page. Again, some temples do things a little bit differently because of that willingness to accept cultural and personal variations. Again, I myself am currently involved in not only my own temple, the Temple of the Starry Sky, but also the Virtual Circle Sacred Space, which is it is a temple that the whole premise to it is that they are online. They meet online. The rituals on Zoom. A lot of the other temples are doing it too, but they were the ones that this is our thing. And it was actually the first temple I was heavily involved in. I still am heavily involved in, and it's a wonderful group. But having that central governing body to help unite us, hold us together, not only makes disputes between temples easy to resolve. Although I can't think of that actually coming up any time in recent memory. I'm sure it's happened at some point, but we're all on the same page. We all want to work together. So it makes moving between temples or being involved in multiple temples makes that easier. It also means that if somebody wants to do something bigger than one temple, it's easy to get people working together. And we can do huge projects. Every year, the tradition does put on an event called the Lustration, and we usually have 2 of them. Again, this is a big-scale, tradition-wide project. Right now, the tradition is getting ready for people who are interested across the country, across the world, for a big trip to the Parliament of the World's Religions, which I believe is in Chicago. They're getting ready to do a big telethon to help raise money for that. These are things that no single temple would be able to do, or would not be able to do easily together, but since we have the ability we have a unifying force to help get all the temples on the same page, we can do these things. Another big thing about our tradition that does make us different than some of the others is our relationship to the ancestors and how we work with them. When I say ancestors, this may be your personal ancestors, you know, your parents, your grandparents, so on. Your personal lineage of who you are as a person, that, well, what would show up on your family tree, if you will. But it could also be our spiritual ancestors. I am not related to anyone, to my knowledge, in the High Corral family, but I am a follower of the tradition, and therefore they are my spiritual ancestors. It is their teachings and who they are that have influenced who I am, at least as far as my spiritual life goes. We do put a lot of emphasis on working with the ancestors. Not all traditions do that. If you attend a Correllian tradition, a lot of times they will call the ancestors to help join in the sacred circle. Just like we call the elements, the guardians, the watchtowers, the goddess, and the god itself. Themselves, not itself. Not everyone does that, again, variation, but it is something we do that some traditions don't. We also put a lot of emphasis on psychic work and spirit messaging. I'm going to get into those later, but it is something that we put a lot of emphasis on that some traditions don't. We also put a major emphasis on shadow work. That is, instead of working magic to influence the world around you, that is going inside and working on who you, as a person, are. And if you do take the formal degree lessons on witch school, you will find that that starts lesson 1 of the first degree. They get into the shadow work really early on. Something else I have noticed that we do that I don't see a lot of other ones do, and not all of us do it, is this. I do know a number of Corellians who do, to show that we are members of the clergy, do wear the clerical collar. I do. I know Ed Hubbard does. I believe he does. And I know a few others who do. I don't see that in a lot of other Wiccan traditions. Honestly, I was initially against it. I'm like, isn't that a Catholic thing? But then I was pointed out that no, by my mentor, Pam, who mentored me for my first degree, and she's like, no, quite a few do it. I believe she herself, no, she does it herself. And she pointed out that a pagan author who I have a lot of respect for, Pete Davis, also known as Pathfinder, he encouraged the practice, and I'm good with that. If these are people who I have a lot of respect for, if they say this is something we should be doing, one day down the road, maybe I'll question why, but at this time I think it's a good practice and I'm going to do it. I also do kind of like having something that I do wear specifically for ritual and for my pagan work. The stole, which is the symbol of the clergy, the purple stole symbolizes that I'm a member of the clergy, is also another trapping that I wear to put my mind in the I'm in my priestly persona. I'm representing the goddess, I'm representing my tradition, I'm representing my temple, versus me wearing my boring street clothes where I'm just me. Yeah. So that's what is Corellian tradition. I had mentioned Starry Sky Wicca. What is Starry Sky Wicca? Starry Sky Wicca is a branch off of Corellian Wicca that I am developing. My temple, the Temple of the Starry Sky, will eventually be another temple for that tradition once it is developed. It is based off, Starry Sky Wicca is based off of Corellian Wicca. However, we put a lot more emphasis on learning a wide variety of magical specialties. If you take the Corellian first degree program, you're going to learn the basics of Wicca, you're going to learn the basics of magic, you're going to learn a little bit of what I call specialties. When I say specialties, you've got your basic energy work that everyone needs to know, but then you're going to have people who they'll decide, okay, I'm going to want to specialize in tarot, I'm going to want to specialize in pendulum or other forms of divination. Maybe I want to specialize in herbalism, crystals, the dark arts, kitchen magic, green magic, which is going to be plants and gardening and stuff like that. And the lessons will give you a little introduction to each, but it's enough to, at least from what I've seen. Um, but you're also going to want to go out and learn more about your specialty. And if you're curious about what, and Starry Sky Wicca, our interest is in these specialties. Learn the basics, yes, you need those. Those are the foundation that everybody needs. But I want to see people going out and learning specialties, going very in depth into specialties, learning multiple specialties. What about the specialties that are not popular or more or less new? One of the specialties I have been interested in is time magic. That is literally magic to manipulate time. It is fairly new. It's not an old one. It doesn't date back very far. A lot of the writings are still new in it. And people who are working on it are on the cutting edge. They're on the leading edge of magic. Same with cyber magic. That is magic and witchcraft and even to the practice of religion in the cyberspace. Me teaching you here on YouTube, or if you're watching on Pagan World TV, this is cyber magic. I mentioned with the Sacred Circle, the Sacred Circle Temple that I'm involved in, we meet on Zoom, and there will be cases where I'm in Central Florida. I'm in Fort Pierce to be exact. We have our priestess is in the Tampa area. We've got a member in California. We've got a member in Virginia. We've got a member in Tennessee, and we are raising energy and we are working as if we're in the same room, because thanks to the internet, thanks to the cyber realm, we are together. And it is just as real, just as spiritually powerful, spiritually moving, still as magically effective as if we were standing in the same room holding hands. Yes, we have to sort of adapt to the different medium that we are communicating through, but adapting is part of the game. It's what we do. I've actually been doing cyber magic and cyber Wicca and whatnot, honestly, since the very beginning, when I first started practicing back in 2001. I could have gone to the library and started looking at books. That never occurred to me. First thing I just went on to a search engine. It was probably Excite.com or Excite.com, probably Yahoo.com, maybe, and started Googling. Or started searching. Google wasn't even a thing yet. And when I started, I want to really start organizing my notes together into one concise book of shadows, I could have pulled out pen and paper. I did, and I, of course, installed a wiki on my web server and used that. The temple website, wiccan.pw, that's the official website of the Starry Sky. The Temple of the Starry Sky is also my personal / the Temple's Book of Shadows, same thing. That is actually where that wiki evolved to. Wiki software should prove to not be quite what I wanted, not quite the workflow I like, so I eventually moved it to WordPress. But what you're seeing there is the evolution of that digital book of shadows. My temple also does Zoom rituals. We also do work online. Yeah. Why am I trying to start my own tradition of Wicca instead of just doing my own practice within the Corellian tradition? This is a good question that I'm sure no one's asking, but I'm going to answer it anyway. And the answer is I am trying to influence the Corellian tradition. I do believe that there are things that the tradition should be emphasizing more. I do believe that there are things that we should just be doing that we're not. And I 110% am trying to teach and encourage people to, within the Corellian tradition, to do it. This video is part of that. But I also know what I'm building is different, and I should be building it to be a formalized system, because if I've learned anything by being a pagan over 20 years, it is that nothing is forever. I've been a part of many groups that have been and then were no longer. And while I hope and I pray to the gods that that does not happen to the tradition, I have been burned enough times to be careful and to know that I need to be building my own systems. Also, I've had two visions actually related to this. One only a few months ago. The second one only a few months ago during my first degree initiation tradition, and then one 2011-ish, in which the goddess revealed the nature of the universe, the nature of magic, and put me on this path of where I need to be. And if building my own tradition is what I need to fulfill that path, then that's what I need to do. I also understand that this path is changing. It shifts as the world shifts, and I know where I need to be, and I'm building the tools to get there. So that's a little bit about what is, excuse me, Wicca. A lot of people who come to Wicca, however, are actually interested in witchcraft. And I'd like to go ahead and discuss witchcraft for a few minutes here. First off, I would like to explain that witchcraft and Wicca are not the same thing. A lot of people use these terms as if they are interchangeable. They are not. Wicca is a religion. It is a series of practices and beliefs to honor our deities. That's the most basic way to describe any religion. Deities being our gods and goddesses. Witchcraft is a magical system. It is a way to practice magic. There's a number of different systems. Wicca, the one that most Wiccans use, we call witchcraft. What is magic? The universe is composed of energy. Everything around you, everything you see, everything you don't see, you yourself are composed of energy. This candle is composed of energy. It is also releasing energy in the form of light, in the form of heat. It's also been burning on my desk for this entire time. I probably should not put a lid on that until it cools. This is energy. And I mentioned the candle because if you are doing magic work and you need extra energy, candles are a real easy way to get it. They are effectively a battery that once you light it, it is releasing extra energy. The universe is, as I was saying, composed of energy. Science teaches us this. The Vedic sages of India have taught this for thousands of years. The Druids, later the witches, we all recognize this fact. The universe is made of energy. Magic is learning to manipulate that energy, and it is the manipulation of that energy. There are a number of different styles and systems of it, of magic and practice. In Wicca, we generally call ours witchcraft. Thelema, which was a religion founded by Aleister Crowley, it has its own magic system, and while they're doing the same thing as we are, they have different style, they have different trappings, they have a different name for it. The Golden Dawn, another magical system, with their own style of doing things. What we are doing at the end of the day is the same, how we achieve it is different. I will also say, as I said, in Wicca we call our system, our style, witchcraft. There are others who are not Wicca that also use the term witchcraft for their style. Their style might be similar to ours, their style may be different than ours, but we still use that term, witchcraft. As Wiccans, we do not have an exclusive control of that term, nor does the term witchcraft refer to any specific style. It is used in many ways, is a very generic term for magic. When we perform witchcraft, we are engaging in consciousness shifting. That is, we don't do it from this person, but it is done from a higher point of the consciousness. We call it the higher self. Right now I am at a particular level of consciousness. Below it you've got the physical planes, you have the mental plane. When I want to start doing magical work, I shift to my higher self, and start working on the astral plane. We'll get into all that later on, but the biggest thing you need to understand there is that we do shift consciousness. We put our mind into a specific place to do it. I said that earlier, that one of the reasons I do wear my clerical collar, I got my stole, I have these trappings, is to put my mind I'm in a magical place. I'm telling my brain that this is what we're doing now. These are trappings that help me to shift into my higher self. Scientists who have actually studied psychics have found that when we do enter these psychic trance and we start shifting into the higher self, our brain waves do change. Reaching the higher self is actually, and I will say, is not hard to do. If you know how to do meditation, that is a way to do it. That's a very common way to do it. It is not hard to do it, but it does take time and practice to learn how to do it easily and how to do it at will. Now, once we have shifted, we can start doing magic, and I will discuss some basics on how to do it. Some basics on magic in the next video. Today we're just sort of introducing you to each of these concepts. A couple things I would also like you to know early on before we start really getting into magic and witchcraft is harm none. A couple concepts I would like you to know. First one is harm none. It comes from the Witch's Rede. 8 laws this Wiccan Rede fulfill, and harm none, do as ye will. This is a major cornerstone of Wiccan ethics. If it harms none, do as you will. First off, let me go ahead and explain this backwards. As you will. What does will mean? Some say this will and do what you want mean the same thing. That seems to be very common, especially amongst newer witches, but a lot of them say it. So what they're saying is, if you don't hurt people, do whatever you want. That's fine. I don't agree with that one. Personally, that is not a teaching I personally agree with. In the writings of Aleister Crowley, especially the Book of the Law, and I know this is big in the religion of Thelema, which, as I said, has had influence on Wicca. Will refers to your true will, the will of your spirit. So, in this case, do what you will would be do what your spirit needs you to do. The great work and all that. As I said, this is a cornerstone of our ethics, and ethics is a very deep, complicated, and in-depth field. The other half of this, however, is if it harms none. And that is that is also a very important part too. Do what you want, or do as your true will desires, but don't hurt others. That is what this law is saying. And hurting others could be hurting them magically, hurting them physically. There is debate on what constitutes hurt. Some say only using magic applies to this. Some of them says in all ways. That's between you and your spirit and the gods. For the sake of these lessons, what I'm going to be teaching you is don't hurt other people. Don't hurt them physically, don't hurt them spiritually, don't hurt them emotionally, don't use magic to hurt them. And do as your true will dictates. We'll go into more on true will later. But just understand that this is a piece of important ethics. If you go on to my website, wiccan.pw, wiccan.pw, I do have an article called The Wiccan Read. I would recommend you read it. That is where that comes from. We'll go into more in depth on that later because it does cover a lot of our why we do what we do. A lot of it is influenced by that narrative. There is also a concept known as the law of three in Wicca. What this says is anything you do, especially magically, but what you do, will come back to you 3 times. Some call this karma. We use the term. We generally use the term law of 3. Now, what does this mean? It comes back 3 times. Anything good you do comes back 3 times. Anything bad you do comes back 3 times. Now, some people say that this is a very literal interpretation. You give somebody generously $1, somewhere along the way you get 3. Some say that 3 should be taken metaphorically, and whatever good you do will come back multiple times. The exact number of times being indeterminate, with 3 just being symbolic of multiple. One friend I have who is a teacher, I'm not going to call him, not my teacher, but says that everything comes back 3 times, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So any good you do comes back in all 3 of those forms. But the important takeaway is whatever you do, good or bad, will come back to you, good or bad. You do good, you get good. You do bad, you're going to receive bad back multiple times to teach you a lesson. If you do good, it comes back multiple times to reward you for doing this. This is karma. This is the law of 3. As I said, this video is meant to introduce you to these concepts that we'll be going into in the next couple of videos. So forgive me if I don't do a whole lot in depth here. Don't worry, we will be talking more in depth later. So I do want to wrap up this video soon, and I do appreciate you sticking with me for as long as we've been. So as these are lessons, I'm going to give you some exercises, and there's a couple exercises I want you to do for this one. Now these exercises are mostly drawn from the official first degree lessons that were written by Lord Donald Lewis High Corral, and you can find them along with the official degree program at witchschool.com. I'm not being paid for saying that. It's a great resource. It has helped me get where I am, and I want you to use it too to help you get to where you need to be. Actually, all of the lessons that I'm teaching here are based, at least in part, on that, but it is also includes my take, my thoughts, things that I've learned that should be included in those lessons, but aren't, whatever. Just so you know where these lessons are coming from, they're heavily influenced by my learnings, which were heavily influenced by Witch School. But there's a couple things I would like you to do as you follow along with these lessons. These lessons are meant for people who are new to the craft, new to the religion, who are new and want to learn. 1, you need a notebook. I would like you to get a notebook, and a 3-ring notebook, a spiral notebook, whatever works. 3-ring binders are nice because you can write different pages and you can rearrange them. And honestly, that's kind of what I'd recommend for new people. I wish I had done this early on. And if you do that, what I'd recommend getting like a way to divide it into 2 halves. 1 half being for your personal notes, your thoughts, if you do rituals and stuff down the road, keep a lot of what you did, how you did it, and what the results were. Did you see results? Were they what you wanted? Things like that. This is where you can go back and look on what you've done in the past and get an idea of what works and what doesn't. The other part I'd like to see you do in your book is a separate one where you take more academic style notes. If you have a page on what is Wicca, page on what is witchcraft and magic, things like that. This section, I wouldn't put a lot of personal notes in, but this should be like your textbook itself. if you go on to my website, wiccan.pw, and look there at the Book of Shadows, you'll see there's no personal notes in there. It is just how to do things, and that's what I'd like to see you writing in that second part. Now, don't get me wrong, over time I have discovered this work that didn't, and I started doing it that way. And I eventually did edit my Book of Shadows, the actual academic side of the directions, to reflect those changes. But it doesn't necessarily go into depth as to why I did them, or things like that. It's just, this is how I do things. So a notebook is a very good place to start. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be fancy. Actually, I would recommend against it being an expensive, fancy one, because expensive, fancy ones you can do. I see some people with beautiful leather-bound, illuminated pages and all this, and they spend a lot of time. You're new. You're not quite. That's something and I'd love to do it too. It's been 20 years. I haven't done it yet. They're absolutely gorgeous pieces of art. But you're new, you're still going to be making changes and rearranging stuff, so I wouldn't be committing to anything that is difficult to change later. Do yourself a favor, that is down the road. Something else to mention now, and I've seen a lot of new witches make this mistake. You do not need to run out to your New Age store and buy everything. Actually, I would strongly suggest you don't do that. You don't need to go buy one of every herb, one of every stone, give me 8,000 candles, and run up half dozen credit cards. Don't do it. That is a bad idea. I see people who go out and buy tons of stones and then discover they have no talent for stone magic. Go out and buy tons and tons of herbs and have no talent for herbalism. I have very little talent for herbalism. If you do need to buy supplies, keep them affordable. Don't go crazy. A candle from Walmart that you pay pennies for is just as good as a fancy hand-dipped artisanal candle that you paid $35.99 for. Like, hold on, seriously. This is what I'm in the middle of moving, so my altar stuff's in a little basket. Check this out. These are my candle holders. The candles, these are tea lights. I really like tea lights for a lot of candles. They are cheap. I bought these at Walmart. I hate Walmart. I really don't like them. They're a terrible company, but I'm not going to get into my weird political beliefs. But I did buy these at Walmart in like a 50-pack for like $2. If I had bought these at like a New Age store, I probably would have paid $1 a piece for them or something. The actual candle holders, these are for tea lights, although they'll probably, doesn't say, they'll probably hold the taller voltives too. I bought these at Dollar Tree for $1 each. Nothing fancy. These are also really heavy glass. I could hurt somebody with them, and I have 4 of them. I have a blue, a green. They stack nicely. That I like. I have red, and I do have a yellow one. So those are all 4 of my element quarter. They represent all the elements. Those are when I set up my altar. Those are the quarter candles. $4 for a full set. Dollar Tree. They usually, and last I went into my local one, they still had them. Although now it's $1.25 each. Cheap candles. I've got half an altar set up there. That said, now as I said, you can just keep it cheap. You can go crazy. The silver candles that I do use, which are these ones. These are. This style candle is called a spell candle or a chime candle. I do have to buy these at my local New Age store. For the metallic, the gold and silver ones, I tend to pay sorry, weird noise in my house I was not expecting. The metallic ones I pay like $1 or $2 each for. And then the non-metallic ones, I think no, I think it's $2 for the metallic, $1 for the regular ones. And if you do use them regularly, you can go online to Amazon, or I would recommend Azure Green, which is a wonderful pagan supply store. A lot of your New Age stores, that's where they're buying their stuff from. And you can buy these in like packs of like 10 or 20 for much cheaper than you could buy them per candle at your New Age store. Azure Green is also where I got my little. These are, it's hard to tell, they are like a dark blue, like a cobalt blue with little gold stars. I love these. Couple bucks each. You don't have to go crazy. I saw somebody once, a friend of mine, who she decided she wanted to get into the craft, so she went to the local New Age store, and, well, I don't want to disparage that New Age store, because it was the first one I ever went to, and they did me well. They saw us coming a mile away, and several $100s later, she had bags and bags and bags of stuff and no idea how to use any of it. Stacks of books. I wouldn't even recommend half those books. You are new, keep it cheap. An incense burner you can spend $30-40 for. This came from probably Publix for like maybe $2. I buy a lot of my incense and stuff at Walmart for $1 or $2 each, or if I'm looking for some odd flavors they don't have, I'll go on Amazon. Although I find incense is another place you can go crazy on buying supplies. I'm sorry, I'm off on a total tangent, but it is something that needs to be said, and I probably will go into a video on this when I get closer to talking about altar supplies. Incense, there's a million flavors, and yeah, you can go out and buy them all. I use like 4 flavors. I have frankincense, I have myrrh, I use sandalwood, I use one called Black Magic. I found that at Walmart, and I like it. I like the heavier, the earthier tones. Frankincense, myrrh, sandalwood. Dragon's Blood, that's the other one I'm not remembering. And that Black Magic. Anathema, a lot of people will have a ritual knife on their altar. This is mine. I got it at Walmart for a few bucks. It sucked as an actual pocket knife because it won't keep much of an edge, but there you go. They're all the supplies I have. This is a feather. It was a gift from my first degree mentor at my initiation. That was a gift, so that's always on my altar. A lot of people use a broom to sweep energy away. We'll get into that when we talk about circle casting. This was a gift from another friend of mine. It's a pen. It's a little pen, but it's also a broom. Nashville Pagan Pride Day. It was actually a promotional thing that they had for that because she's involved with them. But yeah, she mailed this to me so I can have a little broom for my little altar. Because I used to, until like just a few weeks ago, I had a bookshelf in my, before we moved to the new house. And I have my altar set up on that. I might do that. I don't know. This house I think is a little smaller than the last one. So I don't know if I'm going to actually be able to set up a permanent altar or if I'm going to be using a temporary altar like this. We'll see. I'm still unpacking everything. Moral of that story though is... the moral of that aside is don't go crazy. When you start, as I said, you should get a notebook. Go buy a cheap notebook. Go to your dollar store and buy one. A 3-ring binder and a couple of page dividers if you want to really get fancy on sorting. A few bucks. I'd say hold off on commissioning, a handmade all-leather tome until later. Something else I would recommend, and you don't necessarily have to run out right now and buy these. There's 2 books I highly, highly recommend. I mentioned earlier there are magical specialties. Everyone learns to have a basic, should learn a basic track of how we do things and look at dipping your toes into the different specialties, divination, or astrology, tarot, herbalism, healing, things like that. These are 2 books I kind of would like you to be at least familiar with. They exist. It's The Grimoire for the Apprentice Wizard by Oberon Zale, and The Companion for the Apprentice Wizard, the second part. What I like about these books is he does not really go into Wicca. teaches witchcraft without the religion, so you can pick whatever religion system works for you. Although it's clear he does favor the New Age and pagan religions, because that's who he is. What I like about these books, I will warn you first, these books were written for teenagers. When these came out, Harry Potter was the bee's knees. I mean, it's still great, but I mean, that was big. People were getting interested in magic because of Harry Potter, and that's when these books came out. So that was the target market for these. So understand that that's the audience he is speaking to in these books, and there are going to be pop culture references. There are Star Trek references, there are Star Wars references, there are more Harry Potter references than you can shake a magic wand at. So just so you know, that is what you're going to be reading. But what I like about these books, what I think is really great about these books, why I'd almost consider these, if I had a Bible, this would be my Bible, other than my own Book of Shadows, is he does introduce you into all those specialties. He doesn't go in depth in a lot of them. None of them he goes really far into depth into, but he introduces you to a little bit of each of them for a large number of them, so you can dip your toe in, and if you say, oh, I like this, I want to learn more, he's giving you at least a little bit of knowledge to point you in the right direction. He's introduced you just a few of the key words and concepts to point you in the right direction, so you know what you're looking for. That was an issue I had when I first started, is on this path, is I wanted to learn. And I sit there, and I got the blinking cursor on my search engine, and what do I type in? I know I want to learn this, but what am I looking for? That's something I really like about these books. They're not expensive. I picked one came from a bookstore, the other one came. And I'll be honest, this one, the Grimoire for the Apprentice, this is like my third copy. I've had one copy stolen. I had one that a dog ate. I always keep these. A physical copy of these in my collection. A lot of my collection is ebooks these days, just for convenience. I can put thousands of books on my cell phone and read them. This one especially, the first book, is one I always have a physical copy of. But I do like these because, yeah, he does introduce you to the basics, and you're going to see, if you do read these books and watch my lessons, you'll see places where his writings have influenced me. But once you get into the chapters 5 and 6, you start getting really into the specialty stuff. Well, you do have rites, which, chapter 4, everyone should know how to do a rite, but there's also people who definitely take it as a specialty. Then you get into the spectrum chapters, 5 and 6. Meditation, healing, wart divination, conjuring, alchemy, beast mastery, cosmology, mathematics, ceremonial magic, lore mastery, the dark arts. And the other book goes into those more, but also goes into life ways, which is, I believe, can be a lot of like women's mysteries and men's mysteries. Goes into alchemy, goes into performance magic. That's going to be a lot of what we would call stage magic. You know, the pick a card, any card kind of thing. Wart cunning, which is going to be a lot of herbalism, things like that. So he doesn't necessarily go into depth on any specific specialty a lot, but he introduces you to a wide variety. That's why I think these books are great. That's why these books have a permanent place on my bookshelf. These are also books I got very early on in my, I was introduced, especially this first one, very early on in my practice, and they made a big influence on me. Not books you need to have necessarily right now in your collection, but they are books I would like you to know exist. So when you do start looking at learning specialties, that is a great resource to kind of learn what specialties are out there. Another author, when it comes down to specialties, that you should also be aware of, because eventually you may come across his books, is Lon Milo Duquette. He writes, he's not Wiccan, I'm not even sure what he is. It might be Thelema. His writings I know are heavily influenced by Crowley. I know a number of practitioners who say, yeah, anytime they get into a new specialty, they want to learn a new topic, it's his books they go to for that entry-level 101 introduction to it. So, again, you don't have to run out and buy them, but please do be aware that they exist. He's Also, you can find videos of him on YouTube. He's got some interesting things to say. I also find his music quite entertaining, too. Okay. Asides aside, do forgive me. I try to avoid the asides where I go off topic, but that's just how my brain works. I'd say it goes off the rails, but it's been off the rails for 38 years, and there's no hope. Okay, so exercises for this lesson. Let's get back to that, because that's where I was like 10 minutes ago. Wow, is this video really that long? Okay, I'm going to wrap this up real quick. I did not expect this video to be an hour long. I'm sorry. Hopefully you've learned something, though. Get a book. Get yourself a book. Get yourself a pen, or actually, you're new, a pencil so you can erase it. Start taking notes on what you learn. Start taking notes on what you practice. You will be referencing this stuff again. The stuff on what you learn, the academic part of the book, as I mentioned earlier, think of that as you writing your own Bible. You are writing how you practice things. So you say, oh wait, how do I do that again? There it is. Somebody wants to learn, how do you do this? Here you go. I did mine online for convenience. You don't have to. Now, I'd also like you to start practicing 2 actual practices. This is going to be you 3. Let's go with 3. And this is going to start developing those psychic muscles, teaching you how to do your consciousness shifting. First off, visualization. I want you to think of something. What do I actually have? Like, let's say it's this remote that I have on my desk. I might look at this, and I get a good look at it. Then put it away, close your eyes, and I want you to visualize that. Not just maybe kind of sort of in the neighborhood. You'll probably start with kind of sort of in the neighborhood, but I want you to start over time training yourself to be able to form an image in your mind's eye, in your mind, as detailed as you can get it. You might start, if you're using this remote, you might just start off with the shape, maybe get a little red dot at the corner for the button. In time, as you practice on and on and on, you're going to get all the buttons, you're going to get the text. But over time, maybe your mind will be so good, you'll be able to get such detail, you get a little bit of dust in between the buttons that I've never cleaned out for some reason. Visualization is important. There are tons of tutorials online. Let me give you a piece of advice. These lessons are not a one-stop shop to learn magic. I speak very highly of Witch School. I would never say that they are a one-stop shop to learn magic. These books, wonderful resource. As I said, they just point you in the right direction. They are not a one-stop shop. Nothing should be a one-stop shop. No. Learn and be prepared to do research. That is something we pagans have to do. We have to do research. So start learning visualization. It will come up later. Once you start getting into like more in-depth magical practices, your visualization skills will definitely be important. If you're trying to do healing magic on some, you got a friend with a busted leg, obviously they're going to go seek medical attention. But you're going to want to use healing magic to help speed it along. You're going to want to be able to visualize that leg. You're going to want to be able to visualize that break. You're going to want to be able to visualize blue healing energy surrounding it and penetrating into it. That is visualization. Because in that visualization, you are telling your higher consciousness what you want done, and it's going to take care of the rest. That is how we do magic. And don't worry, we're going to go into all of this later. So start learning visualization. Then once you got, at least start working on that. And just spend a few minutes every day. A few minutes every day will make a huge difference. You could say, oh, I'll sit down and do it for 2 or 3 hours. If you're new, 2 or 3 hours is going to be no different than doing it for 2 minutes. 3 minutes. Start small. Don't burn yourself out. Work up to the bigger ones. And then I want you to start learning how to do grounding and release. Grounding, or clearing and releasing is the Correllian term for it. The body has energy in it. There are times we need to get rid of some of that energy. The magic circle, part of what we do in the magic circle is we are raising energy. I said candles are a great source of extra energy when you're doing spell work. Eventually you're going to have extra energy and you need to get rid of it. Grounding, clearing and releasing. And I do see on some of the Facebook groups I am in, and they'll be like, man, after this ritual I feel really energetic and I can't calm down. My heart's beating 1,000,000 miles an hour. What's wrong? You didn't release that extra energy, and now it has nowhere to go. You are a battery. Congratulations. Here's how you solve that issue. Here's how you solve that issue very well, and you should learn this very early on. Trust me, I've learned this from experience. Learned this early on. You're going to sit, I like this, on the ground is best. On the earth, like outside on the lawn, is ideal, I guess. I sit on the couch, because getting back up off the ground at my age sometimes is more painful than I'd like it to be. If I'm able to, I'll sit on the floor. I don't go outside because I live in Florida. Even at night, it is scorching hot. Seriously, I came home from work the other day at 2 in the morning and it was still in the 90s. AC wasn't even touching it. At 2 in the morning. Sorry, that's a rant for Facebook though. But sit there. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to visualize. You're going to learn meditation. That'll help. Clear your mind of thoughts. We will get into meditation later. You're going to clear your mind of thoughts. You don't want a billion things on your mind. And once you are calm, you've started calming down. Visualize. Visualize your spine. Visualize a root, like a taproot from a plant, coming down from your spine, through the floor, into the ground. Visualize from that root, other little roots coming out. Visualize all that extra energy in your body as a white light. Visualize that light coming together towards your spine and then down into the root, down into the earth as it dissipates out from your body. Visualize that energy pouring from you down your spine. Visualize. This is why we learn visualization. Visualize it going into the ground through that root. Earth will recycle that energy and send it where it needs to be. That energy is leaving your body. That extra is leaving your body, putting you back in balance, putting you back where you need to be. Then once you have done this, visualize that root sucking itself back up into the spine and disappearing. We'll visualize it again when we need it. And what you've done is you have released that extra energy into the earth. The Correllians refer to as clearing and releasing. I use the term grounding, which is more common in the Wiccan term. That is why. Now you see. Now I want you to realize what we just did there. I encourage you to learn visualization. And then I show you why visualization is important. Without visualization, you can ground without visualization. That makes it a lot easier. Another way people ground energy. And honestly, that style there, the taproot down into the earth, I would strongly recommend everyone learn. That is probably the most common way people teach it, and probably one of the most common ways people do it. So you will want to know that. Another way some people do is they'll take a shower. I said shower, not a bath. Because you want that water running. As that water runs over you, visualize the energy as a white light coming to the surface of your skin, and watch that energy be washed away and down the drain, seeping out through the pipes back into Mother Earth. Visualize that energy dissipating back into the earth as your energy levels return to where they should be, and that energy is off to be recycled by Mother Earth. Those are two very, very common ways to do grounding. They are, at least the first one is covered in the Witch School first degree lessons, and it is a very important skill. You'll do it at the end of rituals to get rid of that extra energy, and sometimes you'll even do it before the ritual too, to get rid of extra unwanted energies you don't want to bring in. In time, we'll cover on how to not only ground out extra energy, but how to ground out specific energies. It's going to be useful. Then the other exercise, and I want you to do that at least once a day. Twice a day would be best. I like to do it after work, so all that extra energy I pick up. I'm a delivery driver. That is my 9 to 5. Well, technically it's like 5 to 1 in the morning, but whatever. They call it 9 to 5. You're going to want to take all that extra energy. I pick up energy from my coworkers. I pick up energy from people on the road. My customers, as I'm delivering them their delicious food, hot, fresh from the oven. I really like my job. I'm sorry. But I do pick up energy, and being able to dissipate that extra energy, that unwanted energy, is very valuable. If you are still going to school, or if you're in university, or any kind of job, place where it is easy to pick up extra energy, and the ability to visualize it pouring from your body and grounding out into the earth or into the universe are very important skills. And those are both skills that are fairly easy to develop. So do me a favor, those two, I want you to work on visualizing at least a few minutes each and every day. If you do maybe 2 sessions of a couple minutes each day, even better. Don't try to sit down and do it for 3 or 4 hours. If you're new, it's not going to happen. And you're just going to frustrate yourself, you're going to burn yourself out, and that's not good. What you choose to visualize, it's up to you, but your goal is to practice visualizing until you can get it as sharp and as clear, to the point where you can see it so accurately in your mind's eye, you feel like you could just reach out and grab it because it's a real thing. I want you to work on the grounding and releasing, the shielding, the grounding. That is very important. Once a day is good, twice a day better. Again, work up to it. Grounding only takes a couple minutes. Even if you got a lot of extra energy, I don't think I've ever had it take me more than like 5-10 minutes. And once you get good at it, and usually when it takes me like longer periods of time, it's me getting that visualization going in the first place. Once you get it going, it's pretty quick in my experience. Then other thing I want you to do is practice psychic shielding. Now, I know that is covered in the Grimoire from the Apprentice Wizard, and I'm pretty sure it's in the official Corellian lesson plan too. This is another visualization. Once you have grounded and released all of your energy away, while you're still sitting there with your mind clear, I want you to picture a shell forming around you. A shell of clear white light. See this shell, it forms just over your skin, just around your body, a little shell of armor of white, pure light. Visualize it as strong as you can. Any unwanted energies that get caught in it, zapped like it was in a bug zapper. And then I want you, once you see this cloud of white light around you, I want you to harden it. Picture it hardening into a hard, almost metallic, glowing field around you. Then it changes from that white, shining light to a mirror on the outside. So any unwanted energies that are going to come to you are reflected away. Visualize that very clearly, and know that even once you release the image from your mind and you go about your mundane world, this reflective shell of silver and of mirror silver and of white light will still surround you, still protecting you. This is called psychic shielding. When you are out and about and you're working with other people and you are interacting, your energy is interacting with theirs, this shield will keep their energy at bay. This will become more important later on, but the earlier you start practicing it, the sooner it gets easier to do. So I'd like you to go ahead and do those. Do your grounding at least one. Your visualization exercise once a day, maybe twice if you can. Your grounding exercise once a day, twice if you can. And your psychic shielding at least once a day. Once you get the hang of it, if you feel up to it or you feel it's necessary, go up to twice a day. I know I've thrown a lot of information at you. I hope it helps. I hope you've taken some exciting nugget away from this. I'm going to let you go. It's an hour and 8 minutes. Wow, I am so sorry. I did not expect this video. I honestly thought this video was going to be like 30 minutes long. I am so sorry it's as long as it is. If you'd like to learn more, Corellian, Corellian.com, Correllian.com. That is the Corellian Traditions official website. If you want to visit their seminary and get their lessons for free, first degree is free, witchschool.com. And there's always my site, wiccan.pw. Hold on. I got a thing. I found this the other day while I was unpacking. Let me fix it. Sorry, this usually sits in the background. What the heck? Wiccan.pw. That is my website. That should be a period, but the sign didn't come with a period in the site. Wiccan.pw is my website. It is the official website of the Temple of the Starry Skies. It also has my personal / the temple's Book of Shadows. Excellent resource. I've got a few volunteers who recently said they were going to help me write some extra articles, so there's a lot more coming. I write on it whenever I can. You can also check out my YouTube channel. There is a link on wiccan.pw, or you can just go to Wicca, or you can just go to YouTube and search Temple of the Starry Sky. Sky is singular, not plural, so if I've pronounced it singular, or if I've pronounced it plural, I was wrong. It's sky. Starry Sky. You can also watch these videos on Pagan World TV at pagan.world. That's the website, www.pagan.world. And then I think it's under videos. They air every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Dr. Marcus Lawson. This is Jedites Pagan Vlog. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for letting me share what I know with you, and I hope you've taken something away. If you'd like to email me, you can at vlog@wiccan.pw. Take care, stay safe, stay healthy, and until next time, may you blessed be.